Civilization or Barbarism, an Authentic Anthropology by Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop. Chapter 2, Critical Review of the Most Recent Thesis on the Origin of Humanity. The monogenetic and African origin of humanity is becoming every day a more tangible fact. What then remains to be done with ideology? Faced with scientific progress, the ideologists, instead of abandoning lost ground in indefensible positions, contrive to recast their conceptual apparatuses. This is the current practice. In so doing, they think that they will be able to integrate all the known facts without having to renounce the sacred ideas that are so dear to them. For some ideologists, this would amount to committing moral suicide. Thus, timidly, the tendency now emerging is the one holding that the monogenetic African origin of humanity stops at the Homo erectus stage, and that the sapienization of this African Homo erectus was brought about at the level of each continent, but in a Paleolithic environment and under conditions of cultural adaptation that safeguard the necessary specificity and thus the desirable hierarchy of the races, which hyperfine socio-biological studies ought to demonstrate. What we are briefly invoking here are the infinitely varied nuances of this position in order to show that the ideologists have not reached the end of their martyrdom, because logically coherence remains with science. Let us recall the history, for history's sake, that the malaise was already present in the previous generation of eminent anthropologists at a time when the methods of absolute chronology had not yet cast a singular light on the prehistorical archaeology of each continent. What was then known was still quite disturbing. The first Homo sapiens who inhabited Europe was unquestionably a migrant Negroid who came from outside about 40,000 years ago, as René Venot has demonstrated. The first white, the Cro-Magnon man, appeared in the same region 20,000 years later. Who was the ancestor of Cro-Magnon, if he did not derive from the Negroid through mutation? For either the Cro-Magnon nor the Negroid descended from the Neanderthal man who preceded them and who lived 80,000 years ago during the Vermian period. Thus, there was born out of necessity the theory of the existence of pre-sapiens, corroborated by the discovery of three fossils, the principal one of which was a scientific hoax deliberately fabricated to supply ideology with the pertinent facts that it had lacked. This was the all too famous Piltdown Man, figure 5, that was discovered in reality fabricated in 1912 by a British geologist, Charles Dawson. Upon reflection, it was wrong that until now this talented forger, a true scholar, was allowed to pass as a practical joker who had no intention other than to mislead the specialists, whether for fun or for revenge. His aim was quite different, and for 50 years, scholars of good faith, such as André Victor Valois, while formulating some reservations, adhered to the pre-sapiens theory, because it was so greatly needed by cultural and political Europe. Thus, Valois wrote, And I will stop there and we'll continue with 2. Thank you. I'm Uriel Riley, Civilization or Barbarism.